Hey Wargamers, welcome back to the channel, Death from Above Wargaming. I'm Aaron and I am back with more Battlytics excitement. This one was picked by, not the patrons, it was picked by me. Couldn't help it. Had to do it. I'm doing the Mauler. It is such a cool design. It's actually one that I fell in love with after watching the cartoon and playing MechWarrior 2 Mercenaries back in the good old days, the 90s. Remember that? They were fun. It was before the internet. Could you imagine a world when phones were attached to your wall? It's crazy. It's almost as crazy as the Mauler. Who puts 4 autocannon 2s on a mech? I don't know. Only the Draconis Combine. So this thing is a 90-ton beast. It was built by DC. It was designed by them. It had some goofy name, but then they changed it to the Mauler. The thing that made really stood out to me, the reason I picked this particular Mauler, one is because it's like the OG Mauler, but two, the battle value is like Avatar-esque. It's 1460. It's so low, it's bananas. All right. It's like, I don't even know why it's so low. Probably because it has an XL engine and 4 autocannon 2s. But I thought maybe this was one of those ones that would be like a hidden gem. Like, is it going to perform so good that it's like a must take because it's so cheap? I don't know. We'll find out though. So again, produced in 3048. So this is like Helm memory core. It's like one of the first uh, first new things. My favorite thing about this design is the name of the autocannon. So everything's like diverse optics, like Type 7 medium laser. These are called the Imperator Smoothie 2 autocannons. Who names the weapon the Smoothie 2? The same people that put 4 of them on a mech, I guess. Anyway, enough jokes. Let's talk about the movement profile. It's slow as crap. 3.5, doesn't jump. Has 11 double heat sinks on it. Has an XL fusion engine. Everything else is standard except for the armor, which is ferrofibrous. So it's got 11.5 tons, which is low, but the ferrofibrous helps bring that up to an armor factor of 206 pips. The coverage is just shy of 75%, which is my magic number. So it puts it at 73.8%. Now, if we jump over to the center diagram, what's weird about this thing is how low the center torso is. Like, they really wanted to armor those side torsos up. And they were like, just take it off the center torso, I guess. Like, low on the legs kind of makes sense. Low on the CT makes no sense. But such is life. Now, let's talk about the armament. If you don't know this, shame. This is a quintessential BattleTech design. 2 ER medium lasers. I'm sorry, 2 ER large lasers, 2 LRM-15s, and then 4 autocannon 2s, smoothie autocannon 2s. So the ER large are the inner sphere variety, which I actually don't hate. I know some people think they suck. They build up 12 points of heat each. They're still only doing 8 points of damage, but they shoot out, significantly further than the standard large laser. So I kind of get behind it. I like it. Ammo wise, for whatever reason, it has 90 rounds of autocannon 2 ammo. It's absurd. I don't know why you would need that. And then it has 16 rounds for each LRM-15, which I think is that's good. That's a substantial amount. Not too much, not too little though. So will it do well? I don't know. First glance, weapons seem weird, armor seems weirder, but it is dirt cheap. I don't know. What will Battlytics say? Stay tuned to find out. And we're back. The Mauler Battlytics analysis is about to commence. So the first thing I would like to point out is how much freaking heat this thing can build up. It's amazing. It's so, like, the heat sinks are so just not, there's just not enough of them. All right. At at 18 inches, you can build up 17 points of heat. Actually, at 19 inches, you can build up 17 points of heat if you alpha strike. And then it just keeps going from there. So you can basically shut this thing down almost immediately, which is pretty great. But the good news is you can moderate your heat. You can be a responsible driver. And you can still churn out 192.5 points of damage. And if you push it a little bit, you can build up 198.1. It's almost certainly not, that worth it to get the extra 3%. But if you wanted to go crazy and alpha strike, to try to finish someone off, you could certainly do that. If you decided to ride the red line and just press all the buttons and pull all the triggers, you would only generate 64.5 points of damage. I think a stinger punching may outperform you over 12 turns in that regard. So you do need to be very careful. This mech is not for the faint of heart, but it does build up, generate a decent amount of damage. 192 isn't insignificant. But let's look at the lethality. So what I thought was interesting here, first of all, was the damage per hit is 3.6. It's very, very low. It is, clusters of missiles. It's 4 autocannon 2s. And then you got the large lasers as well, which are probably never firing. Because again, the heat to damage ratio is just so bad. It does generate 5.81 critical hits. That is one of the higher ones that we've seen. And again, it's just because there's so many bullets and missile clusters flying in. I think this is one of the first times that I've seen a significant pink slice on this pie chart, which is representative of engine kills. Most of the time, mechs are ripping the javelin apart by just destroying the torso. But almost 10% of the time, this one has managed to generate 3 engine criticals. Again, that's because it generates a lot of critical hits. So that says something to me about how this mech should be used, and potentially what other mechs this could be used in tandem with. So, for example, the King Crab with the Gauss rifles, or the Clanbuster King Crab, or the Devastator that we looked at that had the PPCs and the twin Gauss. Things that just bore holes in the opposition, and then you just shotgun with this Mauler. That could be a pretty decent combination. So, something to keep in mind. Now, I want to take a look at the defensive side. I'm very interested to see how the weird armor distribution holds up against incoming PPC fire. So let's take a look at that. But overall, not disappointed on the offensive side. Just that heat that could be the killer for this. So you got to be careful not to be lured into firing all those large lasers. I think just using the ACs and the LRMs probably more efficient. Before we switch off, I will say this. One thing I can get out of Battlytics is it tells me which weapons it fires. It only fired in the 12 turns. It only fired 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Fired 9 times the ER large, both of them. And 2 of those were in the final alpha strike, where it just, on the optimize, it just goes bananas at point blank. So really, outside of that, it only fired them 7 times in 12 turns, and it's only ever firing 1, if it's firing any at all. Most of the time, it's firing the LRMs as much as possible, and it's firing the AC2s as well. So, fun fact on that. All right, now let's head over to the defensive side and see how this thing did. All right, here it is. It's not too bad. It's actually not too bad at all. So 75% survivability on the nose, 75%, not bad. So most of it is coming from ammunition deaths, followed by engine deaths, which is surprising, followed by CT just getting cored out. Now those ammo deaths are probably actually taking the engine out, right? Because you've got the ammo in the left and right torsos for the missiles. So the way Battlytics counts it is it's going to count as an ammo kill, but it is really taking out the engine. Actually, the AC ammo's in there as well. So if you get inside the left and right torso, despite the fact that you've basically got 3 tons of ammo in each side torso, it's just over 25%. So if I'm looking at the actual critical layout here, so there's only 1 roll again. There's 3 engines. There's some other crap in there, weapons and things, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weapons, and then 3 ammo, and then 1 roll again. So that's not a bad distribution, all things considered. So it's not terrible. It's not like you're guaranteed to hit ammo every time. 27.3% is the percentage that you're going to hit ammo if you get into the juicy internals and manage to generate a critical. Anyway, let's talk about mobility for a minute. So fairly sturdy. It doesn't have anything filling out the leg criticals. There are roll agains on both the left and the right leg. That's just a byproduct of, again, inner sphere, double heat sinks, taking up more criticals than they actually should. No, I'm not jealous. I am. I think it's so ridiculous. Like 3 criticals is insane. Meanwhile, the clans, it's 2. It's so stupid. Uh, so this thing does 2.4% motive hits. That means like 2.5 times out of 100 hits, right? You're going to see a motive hit. It's not significant. However, over 10,000 simulations, because of the low leg armor, you are going to see that mobility drop a little bit, and it's already turd slow at 3.5. So you take one hit, and you're gonna see a loss there. So mobility could be an issue with this mech, but again, all of the weapons have a very, very long range. So I'm not too concerned about losing a half a pip of speed or whatever on this mech. So overall, in terms of survivability, it's actually better than I expected. Um, damage isn't like crazy high. Survivability is not crazy high, but again, the battle value is crazy low. So let's take a look at the efficiency and see if this is another hidden gem. Stay tuned. Ooh, it looks like it's another hidden gem. The efficiency rating is 9.07. That's impressive. It's impressive. Why is the battle value so low? Now, don't respond in the comments with all of the math. I know, but it just doesn't make sense to me. It's another one of these like Avatar-esque mechs where you've got a low battle value and you've got more than enough guns to hurt things. And if you're playing them, en masse, like it's really, really good. And like the other thing I'm just going to call out, right, is battle value. The increases to skill, right, gunnery and piloting are percentage based. So when you're starting lower, it's just so much easier to put a better pilot in, right? Like it's not like a 500 battle value to go from a skill 4 to a skill 3. It's percentage based, right? So like a skill 1 pilot in this ridiculous mech is going to be cheaper than like a skill 4 in a Warhawk or whatever. Anyway, all right. So let's take a look at the numbers. So again, 75% survival rate, 6.5% damage loss, which is not bad. Again, 10% is kind of the magic number there. Anything below 10 is good. Anything over 10 is really not. We don't see a lot of survivability loss until later in the game, right? So if you look at the survivability curve, that's the white line in the top left. You can see it hangs on pretty well, and it doesn't start to really dip off until like turn 8, turn 9. And that, interestingly enough, that was similar to what we saw, I believe, with the Jager mech. So we saw similar loss there, similar pattern of loss. So as long as you keep this thing deep in the field, you're keeping it out of harm's way. You have other meteor targets, again, king crabs, devastators, right? Things that can really lay down some hurt and open some wounds. I think you'll get a lot of even more return on investment than what's shown here. And again, 9.07 is really, really good. That's a very, very strong mech. Now, look at the gunnery sensitivity on this, guys. 9.35. It's off the freaking charts. Put a skill 1 pilot in there. Put a skill 0 pilot in there. Like, shock and amaze people as your AC2s hit from maximum range. It's hilarious. If you put a skill 0 pilot in this, it's doing 266.43 damage over 12 turns. That's really good. Like that's that's like way better than most other inner sphere mechs in this era of this weight class. And again, it's so cheap, 2,500 if you put a skill 0, gunnery 0, I should say, pilot in this mech. Now I know some of you will they'll never do that. you think it's not cool, and you only play with skill 3, skill 4 type, and that's fine too. But if there's no holds bar, I think going nuts, put your commander in this mech will actually really pay dividends. Also, hook a coolant truck up to its butt, and you'll be really good. You won't have any issues with heat either. You can just go bananas with the damage. Anyway, I'm a big Mauler fan. I always was. I'm even a bigger Mauler fan now. Very excited to get the new model that is coming out in the Kickstarter. If you haven't seen that, the redesign is really really good. I think it holds up. That sort of that big chunky design that we remember from from MechWarrior 2 and the cartoon and things like that. So anyway, so pretty cool design overall. Now let's talk about where I would use this thing on the battlefield, and then of course I'm very interested to hear where you would use it on the battlefield. So don't forget to leave that in the comments. But let's take a look at threat and roles. All right, so here we are. I'm not creative. I would use this in one role and one role alone, fire support. I wouldn't let anything get close to it. I wouldn't intentionally get close to anything. I would just kind of move it forward 3, backwards 3, forward 3, backwards 3. Get your +1 to your target mod, and just fire away. That's what I would do with this thing. So you'll notice once you are within 19 inches, you are dealing maximum damage. That's your peak alpha strike is at 19 inches. That's when those ER large come into play. And if everything were to hit, which, won't happen, but if everything were to hit, including you roll, basically you bang 12s on your cluster hit table, you would do 54 points of damage. On average, your peak average calculated damage is 35.8. If you decided to, that's at 7 inches, by the way. If you decided to do, to do no heat, right, to build up 0 heat, your 0 heat ACD is 22.5. So I'll talk about that for a minute. So if you look at this bar chart, because it's important to this mech. Some mechs it's not very interesting. This one I think it's interesting. So the dark red bars represent, again, the maximum possible alpha strike, your peak alpha strike capability. If everything hits, the dice gods love you. The lighter red bars represent if you fire everything, right? What is your average calculated damage? Meaning you roll all the dice, you roll in the cluster table, right? It factors in the range, penalties, and all of these things, right? So 7 inches is really your optimal range, right? That's where you're statistically likely to do the most amount of damage, right? And it starts dipping off from there because again, you're outside of or you're inside, I should say, of minimum range for the LRM. So that's why it starts to peter off. But really, if you look at 14 inches, there's a huge jump from 15 to 14 if you look at the bright red bars, right? It's very, very good because you hit medium range on the LRMs, right? AC2s are already clicking there. So you're doing a decent amount. And I believe the ER large are at medium at 14 inches as well. I actually don't know that off the top of my head. I will check real quick if I can pull it up. ER large, medium is 14. Yep, 7, 14, 19. So 14 is the magic number for this mech. So if you can sit this thing at 14 inches, 14 hexes away from your target, I think that's where you're going to get, that's where you're in your safe zone, where they'd have to engage you with longer range weapons. It's going to keep you alive longer, but you're in a pretty sweet spot for all of your guns, whatever it is that you want to bring to bear for the particular threat in front of you. Now, that said, also keep in mind, the ER large, while you may not be using them as a primary weapon, primarily you're using, your missiles and your autocannons, everything in your torso, you can still use those ER large to torso twist and shoot targets in your rear arc. So if you're doing fire support duty and elementals, whatever, anything stupid pops up behind you, you can actually, turn, twist. You can use that ER large to kind of help out there if you need to. Hopefully that doesn't happen because this thing is very, very slow. So again, the key for me is keeping this thing in a fire support role and making sure that it's paired with mechs that A, can bore holes in other things, and 2, can actually help to keep this mech safe. So if I'm thinking about it in a Lance, you're putting something like a Devastator or 2, things along those lines in those mechs, but you're also putting something like medium in there that's tough maybe even like a wolfhound, dare I say. I know that's not a medium, but something that's tough and that can screen for this mech and can pick up and intercept threats and things along those lines. That's kind of what I'm thinking about in terms of how the Mauler would be most effective on the table. But interested to hear how you use the Mauler. Also, want to know your favorite Mauler variant. I know there's one with a C3 computer. Do you like it? I don't, but I want to hear if you do, to convince me, change my mind. But I really do like this Mauler, the MAL-1R. Very, very cool. Very impressed with this design, especially now that I've run it through the rigors of Battlytics, as it were. So that said, I'm all wrapped up on this analysis. Don't forget to subscribe. Please click that like button. I said it before, it's more important than subscribing. YouTube thrives on likes. So like it, and YouTube will share it for me. And leave a comment. Again, lots of questions about this mech. Is it the next Avatar? Is it the most controversial Intersphere mech? Which one is better, the Avatar or the Mauler? Both are great designs. Both built by the Draconis Combine, interestingly enough. Is there a pattern here, guys? Could be. Could be. Aries Games and Minis. Said it once, said it a million times. Check him out. Derek's an awesome guy. He will get you whatever you need. If you can't wait for the Kickstarter and you need a Mauler today, you can get yourself an Ironwind Metals one over there. But you can also get all the Catalyst plastics, all the books, the novels, dice, third-party terrain from like Hardware Studios and things along those lines. Sage Print Labs, all the cool stuff is over at Aries Games and Minis. Also, don't forget to check out Terrainify, good friends of ours and partners of the channel. They supply us with some fantastic terrain for our tabletop. So if you want to dress up your tabletop, definitely check out Terrainify at terrainify.com. And that said, guys, if you want to help out the channel, head on over to Patreon. You can help for as little as $1 a month. That's all it takes, $1 a month. You can help out the channel. If you like what you see and you want to support what you love, you can head on over there. But that's it. I'm all done marketing. I hope you enjoyed this Battlytics review. I certainly enjoyed doing it. Again, very impressed with the Mauler. Tell me what you think. Leave it in the comments. Guys, that's all I've got. Thanks so much for watching. And of course, stay tuned. Always great stuff coming from Death from Above Wargaming. Have a good night.